Good morning. It is early in the morning. Hey, when you're doing a video a day and you're doing them in a single take, it's a little rougher and there's a little bit of, hey, how do I want to do this today? So today I decided we're going to do this early in the morning. Hopefully it's a little less noisy, but now that I've started rolling the camera, mark my words, here come the garbage trucks. We'll see. We shall see. Dawn. Overland Bound member 19266 wrote to me in the forums and he said, hey, why don't you do a video on risk assessment? And I thought, hey, that's a really good idea. So that's what we're talking about today. We're talking about risk assessment. When you're first getting started, it might help to have a framework. Let me tell you about the framework straight up. We're going to talk about only two things. We're going to talk about factors and we're going to talk about process. So risk assessment, the most important thing is what happens to people, injury. In the broader scheme of risk assessment, there are things like business risk and things of that nature, and we're not going to cover that today. This is about being out there on the trail, coming up on an obstacle, and deciding whether or not you're going to do that. Risk assessment among adventure travel veterans might look really simple. It looks like this. I ain't doing that. Nope. You can do that. I'm not doing that. And that's because there is a lot of knowledge and experience that have built up to that very quick assessment and decision-making process. But when you're first getting started, it might help to have a process. So let's talk about the process first. There are only 5 steps. There are many resources out there. I'm going to put a number of resources in the description so that you guys can do your own assessment, evaluation, and use what works for you. But I'm going to talk about a matrix system, and that's what works for me. I'm not a certified risk assessment trainer. I want you to do your own research. I'm hoping to introduce you to some concepts today, so you can start thinking about it when you're on the trail. Okay, so the 5-step process that I really like is the identification of the risk. Now, risk factors that we're going to talk about primarily are environmental, equipment, and human. That's what you're going to encounter on the trail most often. Getting back to the 5 steps. Identification of the risk, then the measure of potential harm, the assessment of consequences, that's step 2. Then control factors. Can I change the scenario? Do I have control over the one take? Do I have control? Can I change? Can I pick a new direction? Can I remove an obstacle? Can I use personal protective equipment or PPEs to reduce the severity of the outcome? Control. Can you control the situation? Then you record, and that's the process of taking in all those factors and assigning a risk assessment to it, record your assessment. And then the 5th and final step is to refine after you've made changes or after the situation changes. Okay, so now 2 important factors. I mentioned we're going to go through process and we're going to go through factors. What is the likelihood that something is going to occur, and what are the consequences? You need to consider both in your evaluation. So let's run through 2 scenarios very quickly. One scenario, I'm on a trail. What is the likelihood I'm going to slip off that trail? Let's say the likelihood is high. Now, what are the consequences? Say I'm in the middle of the desert. Say I'm going to slide off the trail because it's slippery. Say there's no chance of my vehicle rolling and nobody's going to get harmed. That's an acceptable risk, and I might decide to do it. Take the same scenario on a billy goat trail thousands of feet above the canyon floor in Colorado. Well, in that case, the likelihood might be high and the potential harm is death. It's very severe. So that's an unacceptable risk. And that's the evaluation in the matrix. Now, the same is true for likelihood low, severity of consequences high. It still may go into the unacceptable category. So you have to make that assessment. You have to consider both of those things, likelihood and severity. Okay, and that's what you're recording in the record step of your risk assessment. Before we wrap up here, I want to talk about a few things. First of all, the human factor increases the likelihood of something happening dramatically, because if experience is low, there may not be a basis for proper evaluation. I'll give you an example. I've talked to people on the trail when they're in what they consider a risky situation. You can have very direct eye contact communication and say, hey, are you okay? You got this? And they say, I'm good. I got this. And then even though you've gone through your hand signals, driver's side passengers, stop, you give them a hand signal on the trail and they do the exact opposite. That's because adrenaline has kicked in. You say stop, they hit the accelerator. You got to dive out of the way. It happens. It's happened to me multiple times. So the human factor increases the likelihood that something will occur by a large degree. So consider that. There's another concept, and that is as slow as possible, as fast as necessary. You want to go as slow as possible, and that goes for being behind the wheel, and it also goes for your risk assessment time period. Stop. Some say drink a cup of coffee or boil a pot of tea, whatever you prefer. It's my alarm. Good morning. I usually get up before my alarm goes off. Boil a pot of tea or sip a cup of coffee. Take time to do your risk assessment, and it will greatly reduce the severe consequences from happening. Okay, there's a process. There are some concepts. I want you guys to do your own research. Check out the links in the description. And of course, if you found this useful, we do like your subscribes. Hit the bell. I will see you guys tomorrow. And you can talk to me, give me some video ideas if you would like. I am Michael over on our forums, overlandbound.com/forums. We'd really like you to become an Overland Bound member and be a member of our worldwide crew. We've got 25,000 people worldwide, adventure travelers that want to help you find that connection and solace in the great outdoors and plan adventures, the kind of adventures, the type of adventures that you want to take. We're there to help. Family friendly. We'd love to have you. All right, you guys, thanks a lot. I'll see you tomorrow.